Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. For those of you who aren't aware, my name's Rich, and I run and operate the Hard Compound. We are a one-stop shop for all things motorsport. We do race reviews, race previews, just articles, throwbacks back in time. We run the odd competition. We've got our own merchandise if you'd like a mug or a cap or some stickers. And we also do live interviews, as you have probably gathered. These are all on the Facebook page, facebook.com/the Hard Compound. They are obviously live and they're recorded and saved in the videos section. They're also streamed live to Twitter and to our YouTube channel where they are saved. So do check us out on Twitter at the Hard Compound. And just go to YouTube and search for the Hard Compound, 3 words. And we're on Instagram as well. You've guessed it, at the Hard Compound. We've spoken to some amazing people. Been very, very fortunate. Just going to give you a few examples of who we've spoken to. We've had the honour and the privilege of speaking with Mr. Mario Andretti, which was absolutely superb. An amazing guy with some amazing tales. On the single-seater and sports car world, we've spoken to the likes of Mr. David Brabham. We've spoken to Derek Warwick, Ari Lyndike, Danny Sullivan, Willie T. Ribbs. We've spoken to Stefan Johansson. We spoke to J.I. Hildebrand. Goodness me, we've spoken to Mr. Dick Bennett of West Surrey Racing, the guy responsible for launching the careers of Ayrton Senna, Mika Hakkinen, Rubens Barrichello, Eddie Irvine, and the like. From the British touring car world, we've spoken to past champions and legends, the likes of John Cleland, Steve Soper, Rob Gravitt, Matt Neal. We've spoken to a number of the guys currently on the grid as well. The likes of Jake Hill, Ollie Jackson, Tom Chilton, Rick Parfitt, and others. We've spoken to world touring car drivers, Andy Prio, Tom Coronel. We've had a chat with Louise Goodman from the media side of things, from F1 and the British touring cars, and many, many, many others. Some great young racers like Emily Linscott and Chaos Cole, and some older guys, Ian Flux. We've spoken to many, many people, and they've all been absolutely fantastic. Just last week, we spoke to Mr. Terry Fullerton, the guy. He's a world, European, and UK karting champion, and Ayrton Senna's greatest rival, according to Ayrton himself. So lots of great people we've spoken to. Been very fortunate. So if you want to go and have a watch of those, they're in the video section on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. So go and check them out. But don't do it just yet, because we have a fantastic guest this evening. He's a bit of an all-rounder. He's had success in single-seaters before moving into the touring car world. Former British touring car champion. He's competed at Le Mans and many, many other things, which we're going to discuss very shortly. So I'm going to stop rambling. So we'll say hello to everyone in the comment section. Drop some names in shortly. I'm going to stop rambling, and we're going to bring in our guest this evening. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Rickard Rydell.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Here he is. You. How are you, Rickard?
Very well, thanks. At home in Sweden, in Vaxholm, just north of Stockholm, where I live. So having a good time.
Yeah, good. Just want to put my mug down here. Thank you very much for joining us and for sparing some time this evening. It's absolutely brilliant to speak with you, and obviously there's a lot of British touring car fans on here, so we're going to come to that shortly, I'm sure. But yeah, thank you for sparing your evening.
Thanks.
Right. Okay. I just want to say hello to some people in the who have put some comment section, who have put some comments in the comment section already. Glenn Hunter Fitzgerald, Paul Ablett, Simon Steele, Thomas Day, Oliver Taylor, Paul Ablett, Colin Hart, Stuart Taylor, Chris Boak, Mason789 on YouTube. Don't know your full name, but thank you for tuning in. Jim McKendrick, and many others. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, do pop them in the comment section, and we will do our very best to work them into what's going to be a bit of a packed schedule, because Rickard has done a lot of racing. I actually personally met you, Rickard, back in 1988 when I was a mere 7 years old in the cold and rain at Brands Hatch. I don't expect you to remember, don't worry.
Well, actually, you mentioned it before with the 88 Super Prix, and that was my first ever race abroad, and I didn't remember how it went or anything, so I had to look it up, and I didn't remember finishing third. So
Yeah.
strange. Normally, you do remember your first race abroad, and especially when you're on the podium.
No, of course, yeah, sure. But no, in that I must admit that was my first sort of memory of you. You know, and when you moved into touring cars later on, I went, oh wow, you know, it's kind of good to have you back. So, but yeah, we'll come to that very shortly. But firstly, obviously, it's been a very difficult 18 months or so for all of us around the world. How has it been? How's it been for you? I guess it's not been a walk in the park.
No, of course. I mean, for everyone, it's been a different kind of life, of course, as everyone is aware of. And I mean, on a work basis, I'm also doing expert commentating for F1. So not all the races, but more than half the races. And because of the COVID, we are doing it from Sweden. Normally, we go to the races, and but this year, everything from home. So I have just like half an hour to Stockholm. So it's been quite easy that way. Instead of going on Wednesday, coming home on Monday, I go in to Stockholm Friday morning for the practices, and then the same Saturday and Sunday. So in that respect, it's been a bit easier. But I do have had some traveling anyway, because I'm also helping Dino Beganovic in Formula Regional Championship. He's a part of the Ferrari Driver Academy. So I have been traveling with him first to Dubai for F3 Asia, and then also in Europe, testing and everything. Not all the races, but quite a few of them. So it's been, I have been traveling a little bit, and of course it's been quite difficult, and you have to be really careful and with all the tests and everything. So it's not been that easy, but more time at home than usually.
Yeah, which isn't always a bad thing. Obviously, we love going out and watching racing and being at circuits, but yeah, sometimes you can't beat staying at home. And but yeah, obviously, it's been very difficult for a lot of people, but it feels like we're coming through the end of it now. So hopefully, we can get back to something approaching normal very soon. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So we've got a few questions coming in already, guys. Thank you. We're going to come to those. But if we may, Rickard, can we just start right at the start? What first got you into motorsport? Because it wasn't like the only thing in your life sort of
No,
growing up, was it?
it wasn't really my interest. It was my father's interest. He did rallying a little bit as more for fun when he was younger. My brother started karting, so I tried it out and thought it was really fun. But at the same time, I was also doing ice hockey, and I've always enjoyed all sports really. Still do other sports. But then, of course, karting and the competition of it was I just liked it a lot. So liked to carry on, and then got more and more involved. So, but I never really had the thought of doing much else. It was karting and more for fun. It was like a hobby for the family, for my father and my brother, ourselves. Also, my sister raced in karts for a couple of years, and also my cousins. So we were quite a few of the Rydell family touring around the go-kart tracks in Sweden, and it was good fun. But I never had the thought of doing anything more than karting until probably 16, 17, when I managed to win the Swedish 100cc championship when I was 16, and then 17 again. So two really good years in karting, and that's really what brought it on.
Okay, so then obviously from that, experience and then the success, I guess you kind of started thinking maybe there is something in this. We can maybe do something with this. Now, every time we speak to someone, they always say I was doing karting or I was doing whatever it is they were doing, and then they say, and then I met someone, and it kind of went from there. Did you have that at that time?
Definitely, yes.
I've got a name here, but I'll let you.
It was Pico Troberg, and he used to race himself. He won Lotteria di Monza, as it was called, I think in the 60s in F3. So he was fairly good in single seaters himself, and quite popular and famous driver in Sweden, I guess in the 60s, 70s, early 80s maybe. And he had helped Thomas Danielsson in the Swedish F3 championship, but they parted ways. And just as I had won the karting championship in 1985. So my father went to speak to him and asked if he could help out, because we didn't have the finance to move on to cars ourselves. And then fortunately I signed a contract with Pico early on, and then he helped me into racing. So without him I wouldn't be there. So he acted as my manager and found the budget the first few years. And for the first few years in Sweden, and the first year abroad in the British F3 in '89. But then after that, I never really had much finance with me, and just carried on where I could find a drive. So, but for sure, it was really good. I mean, to be able to take the step from karting to cars was huge. It's and a different world, of course. So that was good.
No, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. And obviously, he was a great help to you. But I mean, we've spoken to a few people on here, and I think you're the only person who's gone from karting straight into F3. I mean, that's a pretty big leap. When you first sort of got in the car, did you think, "Wow, yeah, this is I like this"?
No, I thought more like you said. This is a pretty big leap.
Like, wow.
Because it was a big leap, and I think maybe too big, and also because those first couple of years we did very little running. We had almost no testing before the season. So I think in my first 3 years of racing, I probably did less running than they do nowadays when a youngster come from karting to Formula 4, like if you do Italian Formula 4, for instance, if you do 30 test days and the races. My first 3 years was less than that, I think. So
Wow.
So I think even though it was 3 years, it was like 6 races the first year or something, and maybe 7 or 8 the following years. So not much running, but still a good experience. And I mean, you start younger these days, and at those times, it wasn't really that of a rush to get up the categories.
Yeah, sure. Whereas now it's you've got to do it whilst you're young, if you can, and there's so much competition and all that. But no, it's amazing that the seasons were so short. Then it's
in Sweden, that is. I mean, with the winter we have here and the
yes, yeah.
I guess it's different if you were in Southern Europe.
Yes, I think if you're trundling around Spain or Portugal, you probably get more you get more weekends where you can go racing. So, but no, I mean, obviously it sounds like it was a good time, and I've just got a note here that you came second in the championship in '87. I think that's right. And I've even got a little note here. So you had 9 races and you had six podiums, including 2 wins, which for a second season isn't too bad.
I mean, the Swedish championship wasn't as competitive as it was. I mean, going to England, but second in '87 and '88. But I should really have won the last year, but had too many non-finishes, as it happens sometimes. But it was good learning. But then going abroad to the Super Prix, I remember going there, but I didn't remember how it went, the results, as I was saying earlier. But that was good experience to come abroad to race, and then it's on a different level, and that brought your own level up as well. And even though I think also in Sweden we were very competitive, and with the Swedish team, with Pico Turbo Racing, we went to Brands Hatch, and then we went also to Macau, end of '88, and managed to qualify third. Had a fight with Eddie Irvine into the first corner, and we touched wheels, and I think he didn't finish the race. I was second for a long time behind Charles Alessi, but I had my front wheels were a little bit towing out, so the car was not handling the best, and
around a bit.
And I put it in the wall halfway through the race, and then later Sean Alesi did as well. So if I just stayed on the road, I could have won Macau with the Swedish team in '88.
Wow!
Fortunately, I came back and did it later, but that would have been a good achievement, of course.
Yeah, it would have been a good way to start. And obviously around Macau, it's so easy. It's quite narrow, isn't it? And the barriers are there. None of this runoff nonsense we get these days. It's and I guess any error or any contact from someone else, it's going to have some pretty big some like pretty big consequences. And I guess obviously that's what hurt you in the race, I suppose.
Definitely, but Macau was really good. Really enjoyed that. Nice atmosphere to go there and be there, but also the way it's changed over the years is incredible, and seeing it all those years being there, how it's changed and became bigger and bigger. But it's still one of my definitely top 5 circuits to race on. So quite amazing place.
No, excellent. It's on my bucket list as well. One day I'll get there. Just want to very quickly come back to the race at Brands. I was just looking through some of the entrants just from like my own memories of being there myself. And there's like Damon Hill, David Brabham and Eddie Irvine and Peter Cox and Roland Ratzenberger. So there's some good names there. And even at Macau, again, I'm just going to run through some names of the guys that you were against, and you obviously ran at the very head of the grid against. Again, you've got Damon Hill, Frank Bieler, Jan Lammers, Gianni Morbidelli, Stefan Johansson, your countryman. You've got Eric Comas, Jean Alesi, as you said, Fabrizio Giovanardi, Gabriele Tarquini, Bertrand Gachot, Carl Wendlinger, JJ Leto, Eddie Irvine, Martin Donnelly, Joe Winkelholt. I mean, that is one heck of a grid. There's a lot of amazing names there, and obviously and that was your first time at Macau, and you were running right at the head of it. You must have felt pretty good.
Yeah, and somehow I just liked street circuits, and the only one I'd done before that, never had been on a street circuit actually before Macau. But
Wow.
I guess it's just Macau is so special with every year all the drivers went there, so it was something everyone was looking forward to each year, and I enjoyed going back there, and I just always liked racing there and on street circuits, also Monaco the following year, and other places. So I don't know. Sometimes it fits you as a driver, and sometimes not.
No, well, exactly. Just while we're on the subject of like street circuits, obviously, certainly in F1, the cars are so big now, and obviously, you get like Monaco gets a lot of stick, and so does Baku. But I love a street circuit. I always have done, even back in F1 in the 90s when they were at Detroit and Phoenix and all these other, places like Macau and Po and all these other street circuits that we use. As a spectacle these days, perhaps they're not as exciting as the high speed circuits with miles of runoff, and you can go a bit crazy with it. But as a driver, do you appreciate the street circuits more as it's more of a challenge for the driver, or are you more one of the guys who likes to get his foot down and have a blast around Monza?
No, I liked the street circuits more for sure. I mean, when there's like no room for mistakes, and you have to be very precise, and it's also a little bit about the setup of the car, how you do approach it. You can't just be on the limit straight away. You have to build your confidence and build up your speed, and also you need to have quite a pointed front. I wouldn't have the same setup on a normal circuit, but you need to be able to place the car, because sometimes you need to make quite quick changes and of steering, and so you have to have a little bit of oversteer in the corner so you can choose your line a little bit. But on the normal circuit, it doesn't matter if you run a little bit wide, but here of course you can't run wide. So it's a little bit different, and no, I like it. I like it because it's just a bigger challenge for a driver.
Yeah, no, sure. I'm pleased to hear that. I like that, because I would defend street circuits until the cows come home. I've always said that. They're absolutely brilliant. Got James McKendrick. Hi, Jim. He's just said that street circuits are fab. He said the Indy cars from Long Beach was fantastic. Absolutely. And the race at Marrakesh, that's the WTCR, I believe, never disappoints. So, fully agree. We're on the subject of circuits. We've got Diffan Evans. Hello, Diffan. Nice to see you, sir. He says, are you aware that the complex at Thruxton is still known for the Swedish Shuffle?
I didn't know that. No, that's good.
It's still there.
It was, funny thing as it happened. I never really thought about it, but more and more people started to use it. So I'm happy that the name is still there.
Yeah. No, that's great. I was I was there the other week for the touring cars and for the superbikes a few weeks ago, and I mentioned it to someone about the Swedish Shuffle and said about you. And this guy, he was a bikes fan, and he just looked at me just completely. He was like, "What are you talking about?" He just like, I don't understand.
They don't know.
But no, great. Thanks, Defan and Jim. Thank you. Just moving on to just go back to '89, the British F3 with Eddie Jordan racing. He was a character.
He was definitely. I mean, he was really good, and a lot of people say a lot of things about Eddie Jordan. I really liked him, and he was always good to me. He was also my manager for at least a year after I raced for him. I raced for him in '89, the British F3, and started the season really well. Won the first race at Thruxton, I think it was.
Yep.
And then we were competitive, quite competitive throughout the year. But the route were the car to beat. The route were first, second, and third. I was fourth, so first Reynard. I know Mika Häkkinen was also in a Reynard and didn't do very well that season.
Yeah, I think he was 8th or 9th, I think.
Yeah, and of course, as a driver, you always, about the driver's book of excuses. You always find an excuse for when you don't win. And this time it was that the Renault wasn't the quickest car. It might have been better with another driver, I don't know. But at least I was the first Renault to finish. And but I liked it. I enjoyed the season, and it was quite a good little team we had with the mechanics, Paul Heath Engineering, and BA, and Dean. Remember a long time ago, actually. I still remember the names. So
sign of a good team.
That was fun. And we went to Macau, and without a sponsor. I remember Eddie Jordan really wanted us to go to Macau, and I qualified it on pole position. And I remember after qualifying on the Saturday or Friday, if it was, we managed to get Viceroy, a sponsor on the car. So we put it on the car in the evening, and then for the race we had a sponsor, and we were really happy, got the money, and I came to Lisboa and shunted in the first corner, turning right into Lisboa. And so the sponsor maybe wasn't happy paying that amount of money for a few hundred meters.
Yeah, 300 meters. It's just one of those things, you probably find if you hadn't had the sponsor on the car, it wouldn't have happened. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
But that year though, obviously it was, the title was between David Brabham and Alan McNish, which I remember very well, as you say, in the route. And it was decided in court, wasn't it? Because one of them had won it and the other one didn't. And we actually had David on a few weeks ago. That's him there. And he spoke very fondly of the time in British F3. And obviously you would echo that. I guess you had a really good time that season, obviously, even if Alan and David were off in front for a lot of the season.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it. It was, you got to know the drivers quite well, and although of course I didn't socialize with many of them outside the racing, I didn't live close to anyone, at least not that close, and I was more with the team, if anything. Still quite my first year abroad from Sweden, being quite young, so I guess it took a few years before opening up more than I did at that time.
Yeah,
so
sure.
But I enjoyed it. I liked it, and I liked racing on all the British circuits, learning like places like Oulton Park, which was quite amazing. First time there. Of course, Donington, Brands Hatch Grand Prix is still one of my favorite circuits. Really, really
Everyone
nice.
says that. Everyone who's come from wherever they are in the world. Again, I mentioned in the intro, we spoke to like Willie T. Rebs and Danny Sullivan, and they've said that they would put Brands Hatch GP as even Mario as well. They all said that it's their favorite circuit.
I guess it's just the underlay. I mean, up and down, the height difference. Some corners a little bit off camber, sometimes negative camber, and it's just really those old classic circuits are really special. So
yeah,
and I think all drivers finds it special to race there.
Yeah, good to hear. I had a question right at the start from Chris Boak, which actually fits in quite nicely right now. What was your favourite British circuit that you drove? Would it be Brands or?
It will have to be Brands Hatch Grand Prix, the Grand Prix circuits, and after that, perhaps Oulton Park. I mean, because of the same characters a little bit, although a little bit more narrow and less runoff areas, is not as fancy maybe as Brands Hatch, but as a circuit, really good. Donington I like quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
So those are probably my favorites there.
Yeah, good. Yeah, all excellent circuits. I mean, I've never driven on them. I'm not good enough, but but certainly, always great to go and watch at. Just one more thing before we move on to F3000. You mentioned about Alton Park, and one of the guys that was on the grid in '89 was like Paul Warwick, and we all know what happened to him at Alton Park. And we had his brother Derek on about a year or so ago. Obviously, Paul was a very good racing driver. Just wondering what your memories of him were, because he was, 92 when he passed, and he was absolutely flying, wasn't he?
Yeah, I know. It was really nice guy, and when it happened, of course, really sad. I mean, I didn't know him very well, but we raced together and talked quite a few times, and that was really sad. And the first time that I knew someone quite well, in a way, that passed away in racing. So that was a shock for everyone. And of course, I talked to Derek years after racing Derek Warwick in the British touring cars, so knowing him as well, thinking about Paul, of course. So now it's very, very sad, of course, when it happens.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm obviously very glad that it doesn't happen nearly as much these days, which is what we're all very glad for. And also, we had Mika Häkkinen, who went on to do quite well as well that year. Further on in the future, he did pretty well.
I was actually going to the Marlborough test with Mika Häkkinen, me and Mika Häkkinen, in the end of '89, I think it was, or was it '90? I can't remember. And I remember we were at Le Mans, and I wasn't really prepared for the test and hadn't really tested those cars. So I think, in hindsight, as a driver, you need to be better prepared when you get a chance to do something, to test something, to compare yourself against someone else or drive another car, and so that's quite important. But I remember doing the test anyway with Mika Häkkinen, and we were both flying home in the evening, and we were trying to go really quickly to the airport, but we both had the cheapest rental cars. Mine was a little bit quicker, and because we were on the same flight, his was a little bit slower. I remember pushing him along on the motorway, so we're trying to get to the airport at the same time. So
doing some NASCAR, a bit of bumping.
Yeah.
See, it isn't always down to the car, though. You see, we all know that. Someone's just mentioned about Brands Hatch. Ty House, hello Ty. He's mentioned something about Brands Hatch and a guy called Anthony Reid. We're going to come to that later on. Thank you, Ty. Yeah, we'll come to that. But yeah, so obviously after '89, you moved up into Formula 3000. Now, me being young at that time, I always remember thinking that F3000. The British F3000 was just absolutely mad. I mean, the cars just looked so much quicker. And I remember my dad saying to me, you want to be careful with the F3000 cars when we go and see them, because, quote, they're just bloody dangerous. I was just wondering if it was, as a driver, if the jump from F3 to F3000 was, again, a big one.
Yeah, quite big in those days. I can't remember the power of the F3, but was it less than 200 anyway? I think it was, and the 3000 had probably 470 or something. So it was quite a big step to 3000, if I remember right. And more grip, more power, more aero. So yes, you had to do quite a bit of running before you get used to it, before you were used to it yourself and could maximize your driving. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed F3000. And I didn't do all the races. I had quite a big accident in 1990 at Snetterton.
Yes, yeah.
And that was it was actually the front wing, the side plate on the front came off through the SS before the bridge.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then coming into Bombhole, the car wouldn't turn, so I went straight off there at 190 k's. And I just know that I woke up once in the ambulance and then in the hospital, so unconscious for a while. And the seat the seatbelt broke, the bracket broke for the seatbelt, and my helmet cracked and everything. That's the worst crash I've ever had, and still
Wow.
remember. I had a problem with my wrist for years after. Still can feel it sometimes. And but I was happy nothing happened, and 6 weeks later I did Le Mans 24 hours with the Vern Schuppan team. So I had a concussion, but I was okay after a few weeks. And remember, at least my first ever laps after that was at the Le Mans 24 hours, where I raced with Hurley Haywood and Wayne Taylor.
Wayne Taylor, yeah. Wow, that's a big name in sports cars to be alongside.
The Porsche 962, so quite an amazing car to drive.
I'm sure.
But that year it was a busy year. 3000 and F3 with Toyota in Japan. Did four or five races with Toyota, and Le Mans 24 hours plus Group C in Japan as well. So I was like between Japan and UK, and tried to do everything really. And also my first ever time being paid to race in Group C. So that was also an experience. Nice that someone paid for
that's an amazing. That's an amazing year. Obviously with the accident thrown in as well. I must admit I didn't realize the accident was that severe. Obviously, I had a big accident. I didn't realize it was that bad. So, wow, yeah. So you mentioned about the Toyota thing, because was it through Toyota that you were the paid driver? How did that all come about? Because you hadn't really been involved with Toyota much in the past, had you?
Toyota and Tom's, they were always looking at Macau, and so it was the pole position in '89 that they contacted me and wanted me to do the full season in Japan, but I didn't want to give up the 3000 offer to race in the British F3000, so I only agreed to do half the races, and also then I was contracted by Tom's Toyota then for 91 British F3 and 92, 93 in Japan. So I had a contract with Toyota for 4 years.
Wow, okay.
So it was nice work being able to race in F3 for 4 years and have that contract with Tom's.
Yeah, have a bit of security with a great team as well. A great team behind you. Again, yeah, you mentioned about 1991. I've just got a note here. This is the third time this has happened. Race 1, you won your first race of the season. That happened at Thruxton in F3, and then obviously again in F3000, and then again back in F3. You seem to hit the ground running.
Well prepared.
Yeah, see?
Or perhaps maybe the others weren't well prepared. I don't know. But it's true. 91 was in F3. The Tom's car was a really great car. Handling-wise, it was Andy Thorby designed it. And I think probably a little bit draggy. We probably had a little bit more drag than other cars, but better through the corners. And nice to win the first race. But we did have a problem with the engine that year in the UK. And I complained a little bit, and because I knew in Japan they were doing well, and I asked if we could send the Japanese engines to England, but in UK they were doing their own engines, and we were losing on straight line speed. But I managed to get Toyota to supply engines for Macau for the end of the year, and I only finished 6th in the championship, but got a Japanese F3 engine in for Macau and took pole position in Macau. So I was like a nice way of to be able to do that, to show to everyone that there was an engine problem and the Japanese engine was better. So pole position in 91 as well, so it was good.
Yeah, no, that's great. I didn't realise that was the that was the issue with the Japanese engine. Obviously, doing it, and showing how good the engine was out in the Far East there is obviously it's the place to do it, isn't it? It's
exactly. Yeah.
Obviously happy with that. Again, I just want to quickly just go back to the names on the grid in '91. You had like Rubens Barrichello, David Coulthard, and Gilles de Ferran, who's won the Indy 500. Tom Christensen, who's won one or two things in France somewhere. Yeah. Now and again, and so again, an amazing field. And obviously 92, 93, you went out to Japan. Were you living out in Japan at the time, or were you doing in France? Or was it a bit of a culture shock out there?
Most of the time in 92, we were living in Japan. I had my first child in 92, in January, and so my wife and child came with us to Japan. So when she was 3 months old, so we lived there for the biggest part of the year. But then in '93, I commuted back and forwards, and '92 was with Tom Christensen and Jack Villeneuve. So we had a really good time. Enjoyed racing with those guys, and we had a lot of fun as well. I mean, you couldn't do that much other than racing and spend time together. So we went to karaoke, of course, singing, 10-pin bowling. That's about it. Maybe golf sometimes. We tried that a bit as well, and tennis, I remember also. So, but because we had a lot of spare time, of course, being in Japan, only racing. But I enjoyed it. It was good fun to have done it. Quite tough sometimes being there on your own for long times, but then afterwards it's nice to have done it. And but end of '93, I had lung collapsed, spontaneous lung collapsed, and I was in hospital for a week. And I had an offer to do F3000 for '94. And that was my dream, to try and go to F1, of course, as everyone. And as you know, there was quite a few drivers going from Japan to F1, like or Ralf Schumacher was there, and that was probably my goal. But then after that happened, and I got an offer from Volvo to race in touring cars, I thought it through, and commuting to UK was a bit easier than commuting to Japan. The time difference as well, I found it quite hard, and I realized that I really had to spend more time in Japan and almost move to Japan to be able to do it properly, to give it all, if you like.
Yeah.
And but then so I said yes to the deal from Volvo at the end of '93, around Christmas time. Went to the UK and negotiated the contract with Tom Walkinshaw, and I wasn't really sure that we were gonna. They talked about the estate, but I didn't know we were going to race the estate when I signed the contract. And then I saw the pictures and everything, and they told us that we were going to race an estate. And I thought, from dreaming of F1 to go and race a Volvo estate was like a big move. But I didn't really see. I didn't really see myself as a touring car driver until quite a few years into the British touring cars. I always thought that I do a couple of years of this and then I go back to racing single seaters again. But then of course, as BTCC grew up and became bigger, and they were spending more money on it. And I mean, in the end of the BTCC, the budgets were quite big, and I really enjoyed the development side of it, to be part of the team and work with the engineers to make the car better. And I enjoyed testing as much as racing. So it was I never regretted the move from single seaters to touring cars.
Right. But so, like you said, like the touring cars, whichever series it wasn't really in your mind at all. You hadn't really thought about it before. I guess, was it the call from, was it Tom Walkinshaw or
it was actually no it was actually from it was actually from Tom Walkinshaw and the King at Tom Walkinshaw that contacted me. So, and no, you're right, I never thought about touring cars before I got the contact, and initially I just thought, no, that's not interesting, I'm not going to do that. And then because of my hospital week and going back home and thinking about it, and then I thought, why not? And got offered quite a good deal to race. So I thought, why not do this? So it was a good decision in the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until we tested the car on Tom Walkinshaw's driveway. That was
on the driveway.
No, yeah, the first time we ran the '94 car was like a few days before Thruxton. Jan Lammers was like the experienced driver, so he got to test out the car first, drove it up his driveway and back, and he said, Rickard, why don't you jump in and have a feel? And then I tested it, and we both realized there was something wrong with the car. And in the beginning of the season, the first couple of races in '94, it was really, really difficult to drive, and it had too much bump steer and torque steer. So on the bumps, on the power, the car was like difficult to keep in a straight line, and you couldn't really be at the edge of the track turning in, because you didn't know if you were gonna jump half a meter to the right or left. So you had to like keep a gap to the side of the track. But then they did really well, the engineers, to make it better. So after a few races, the car became better, and I mean, we even managed to qualify third at Snetterton in the middle of the season. So beating some of the BMWs, and maybe not beating the Alfa Romeo that year because they were the car to beat. But it got better and better. I think it was because it was the first year that TWR built a front-wheel drive touring car. I mean, it was much better in 95 when they had a bit more experience and building the 95 car. If they had known what they knew then I think the 94 car could have been much better. So
right. I mean, you've pretty much answered the question, but I mean, so many people have sent messages in the last few days saying, well, because the 850 Estate has become like a cult car. Everyone just remembers it because, let's face it, it didn't look like a touring car. It wasn't the first car that would have sprung to mind when you're talking about touring cars. And the amount of people that have said, what was it like to drive? Because they remember it in their sort of rose-tinted glasses, looking back as being this fantastic, different car. But obviously, it wasn't quite so good inside as it was to look at.
It was fun. It was, the commercial wise, it was the right decision. The first learning year in the British touring cars with the image that Volvo had in the UK. So I think it was all the right things to do, the right thing for them to do. But racing wise, it was quite difficult to handle. But I enjoyed it anyway. We did that first year, and then of course from 95 we were much more competitive. And I really enjoyed British touring cars from 94 till 2000. So I had a few years there with the racing with the guys there. Of course, you were not friends all of the time, but we socialized and had quite a good time outside the circuit as well. And there was a couple of years when we all quite often had a test day on the Thursday, a free Friday, and then racing Saturday, Sunday. So we went playing golf together, quite a few of us. And it was all quite competitive, even on the golf course sometimes. So I enjoyed it. It was good fun. A lot of good memories from those years.
No, great stuff. Just saw a question earlier from Kay Baker. Good evening, Kay. Just two questions regarding Tom Walkinshaw and everything. Firstly, what are your best and worst memories of Tom? And whatever happened to the dog?
I don't know who took care of the dog. Someone probably. It was stuffed, so it didn't go anywhere by itself. But Tom, I remember, of course, he was always very fair to me. Tough. When you were negotiating or talking to him, sometimes he didn't say a word. He was thinking thoroughly, and then he knew exactly what he wanted. And so tough negotiator that way. But I always fair, as I said. But I remember sometimes coming into the circuit Saturday morning or Sunday morning before a race, if the people were like cleaning the plastic floor, lying there and cleaning and making sure everything was right, you knew Tom was coming, because then they were all saying, "Oh, Tom is coming today," and it was like he liked for everything to be perfect and in perfect condition, and in that way he was a good boss. I know that there's maybe everyone didn't agree with him sometimes, but no, he was good to me all the time. I never had any problems with him, except that he promised me a test in the Arrows, but I never got it. So
terrible.
Yeah.
But no, that's great. Just in a kind of very quick one before we move forward away from the 850 Estate. He said, was the 850 Estate sort of put to one side with the increase in downforce in the series with wings and everything? So obviously that's where the Alfa Romeo had its advantage, wasn't it?
That was one. I think that was one of the reasons they brought in those regulations, so that the 850 wouldn't really be competitive. Because you couldn't put the rear wing on the Estate. But I think because of the weight very high up and being that long, they had too much weight further back. It was quite bad in the chicanes. Change of direction took a little bit too long. So it was the right thing to move to the saloon car. I mean, even the 850 saloon was quite a big car compared to some of the others. So but the estate probably a bit too big.
Yeah. So sort of almost like the staple of a Volvo, isn't it? It had to be big at that time. I always remember my grandfather had one. It was huge. It's an enormous car. So 1995 in the saloon, and I just said that you got your first win at Donington, which I believe was Tom's home circuit, and obviously the BTCC is there this weekend as well. But it must have felt good to get that first win under your belt.
To be honest, I can't remember it. No. Probably becoming too old, but no, I of course that year 95 we were quite competitive. I think that was the year when we had quite a lot of pole positions, or what was that year after?
Can't remember. I think it was that year there, where you were.
Anyway, we were on the Dunlops. If it was 95 or 96, we were on the Dunlops and it was quite a good qualifying tire. So we managed to take quite a few pole positions, but it wasn't as good a race tire as the Michelin, and therefore we changed to the Michelin the following year. It must have been 95. So that was the biggest problem really for us. Good in qualifying, but never really that competitive in the races.
Yeah, sure. Just on the tyres. Just seen Kay Baker's commented again, said that the air certainly changed when Tom arrived from relaxed to stand to attention. Yeah,
exactly.
Just one thing about 95. Obviously, John Cleland won the title that year, as we all know. But you had an incident at like Snetterton, which has got to be one of the biggest luck stories in an accident ever. When you went backwards, and there was like a tyre wall and a bank, and you just went straight through a gap that was the width of a Volvo wide, straight back past the ambulance and missed everything.
I mean, they were really surprised. Amazing. It wasn't really. It was only by luck because the brake pedal went to the floor. There was a problem with the brakes, and so when I turned in, I had no brakes. I just turned in, so it oversteered. I lost the rear, and I went backwards. I was a passenger. It was only by luck that I missed that ambulance by like half a meter. And when I climbed out of the car in the bushes, they were still really, really surprised. The people standing by the ambulance. Fortunately, they were standing behind the guardrail. Otherwise, I mean, anything could have happened. So it was really, really scary situation. And but on film, it looked quite good, I guess, reversing through it.
It was pretty spectacular. Yeah, I actually watched it back the other day, and I thought, those ambulance crew must have thought, what the heck just happened? Volvo went whizzing by them. I just want to skip forward. Obviously, 1996. So you had 4 more wins. You had a win in 97, racing against like Frank Bieler and Alan Menu and that Williams Laguna, which was pretty spectacular car. But 1998, obviously, that turned out to be quite a good year. There were some changes in the format of the series. Excuse me. Obviously it was in the newer Volvo at the time. Going into the season, obviously with the Laguna having dominated the previous year with Alan Menu, did you go into the season thinking we can be a bit closer this year? Did the car feel different?
Absolutely, because 97 first year with the S40 was a bit of a learning year, and I think we realized throughout the year that there was a few things that wasn't really right, that wasn't perfect, that we could have made better, and it's always easier in the second year with the same chassis to do those changes. And the car was a lot better in 98, both engine wise and chassis wise. So already in the testing early in the year, we knew that this car can be really, really good. And so we started off quite well, I think, and competitive year, really good year. I think 17 podiums in 24 races, I think it was. So I think the fact that we were there or thereabouts all the year helped us, and also that we were quite quick in the beginning of the season and took more points than the Nissan did early on, because towards the end of the year they were really competitive. And,
they were really strong. If
they had been early on in the year, maybe we wouldn't have won it. So,
Yeah.
but a good year, a good season with eight manufacturers, so 16 works cars plus the privateers, the most amount of works cars in the championship, and so probably those years 96, 97, 98 was probably the strongest field in the British touring cars. So.
Yeah, definitely, and all those manufacturers, the works teams, they weren't just treating it as something to do. It was, they were really heavily investing in it, weren't they? Because obviously it was a major series in that super touring era, and I think there's lots of people within the British Touring Car Championship around that time have said that 1998 was probably the toughest championship to win. But obviously, before you were crowned champion, it was touched on earlier, the incident with Anthony Reid, which is still one of my favourite moments. I must admit, I quite enjoy it as a fan, because I still think that, because I watched it back the other day and saw the two interviews, and he was saying, he brake checked me and I didn't do anything wrong. But I thought, no, Anthony, you drove into the back of him.
Yeah.
I'm on your side, and I'm not just saying that because you're sitting on the screen in front of me.
No, but the thing is, I knew Anthony very well. We raced in Japan. He was also one of the drivers racing there in 92, I think. One of the season he was there in a way. So I knew him quite well. I remember once he was testing at Fuji in 3000, and the car was upside down. He lost his helmet, had quite a big crash. So I went with him to the hospital in Gothenburg because I was there at Fuji, and so I mean we were spending quite a lot of time together. And when you race in Japan like that, you get really close. So you become quite good friends. So we talked quite a lot, but then of course on the track, it's everyone for himself. And
of course,
I knew exactly where he was in my rear view mirror, and he just braked very very little. Very light brake, so he used me as his brake, and just a small shunt, quite good done. I must have said he was quite good at that. He learned that trick. For me, coming from single seaters, it took me maybe a couple of years before you learn. And the master, of course, in those years, 94, 95, was John Cleland. So he taught me a lot.
Yeah,
I have to say thanks to the master. And but Anthony Reid, he got past, and I was of course really really angry, and I wanted to go and talk to him because I knew him well. I wanted to talk to him before the podium and before the cameras and everything. So that's why I did it straight in the Parc Fermé, behind like the scrutineering garages, and I didn't have a clue that the camera was like 2 meters behind.
It was there,
filming everything, and I just grabbed him on the overall like this, and held it. And I remember at the end of the season party with the TOCA awards, because I did like this and holding. They played that back like this all the time, so it looked like I was punching him. But
they were shaking him.
I got the £2,000 fine for it, for what I did, which I'm happy with because I also got the win. So it was worth it. And I think because I normally didn't say much, I was quite fairly quiet driver, and I didn't complain much. And because I was quite upset, they realized, see, something really happened here, and they looked through and they saw it, of course. And I think that was part of it. So I think sometimes it's good to be upset. Sometimes it's good to show your emotions and not just be quiet or so.
Yeah.
Perhaps I should have done it more often. I mean, not like that, but show my emotions better sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, and I think I think you've got a point there, and also certainly given that someone who's like you, you're not the kind of guy who's going to go shouting and screaming every other race like some people in the touring cars, which we're not going to mention. But and as you say, when you do get that angry and that annoyed, they must look at it and think, "Oh, hang on, maybe something did happen." And obviously, it was found in your favour. So, but yeah, and obviously you were crown champion that year at Silverstone. I think with a race to spare, if I remember correctly.
It was before the last race at Silverstone. So after the first race in the morning, or whatever, the morning race. There was like a second race in the afternoon. So before the second race, I was crown champion. So
yeah,
it was nice to have done it before the last race.
Yeah, that must have felt great. When you realise that you're the champion. I
Yeah.
mean, did you sort of allow yourself to give it a real yes before that last race, or did you think, like, I've still got a race to go, I've got to just get
No,
that
I was
season?
quite, I was quite relaxed for the second race, of course, because it was quite a lot of pressure that year. Where there was a lot of guests from Volvo. There was I had a lot of friends there as well, and there was those years were really good. I mean, spectator-wise, there was like between 30,000-40,000 people spectators. So, and the races were shown on Swedish TV, so it became quite big in Sweden because it was Volvo, of course, a Swedish manufacturer and a Swedish driver fighting for the championship. So it was quite popular and quite a lot of pressure, and so a bit of a relief, of course, afterwards to have done it. And if I look back, even though I had some other championship wins and some other wins, I must say that because of the involvement from manufacturer and the budgets that we had, the testing we did, all the effort that went into those seasons, the 98 season is my biggest achievement and biggest win. But when you look back, it's always like 3 or 4 or 5 things that you remember, and but no, that's the main one, definitely.
That's the big one. Yeah, brilliant. Just very quickly, I want to come on to Bathurst in a second and that lap. You guys in the comments, you guys know your stuff. Wow. Mason on YouTube, it says, what happened at Silverstone 98 round 4 that Will Hoy won, but your car went hard into the barrier before the hairpin? Do you remember that?
No.
Fair play, Mason. I don't remember that one.
I can't remember. My memory is too bad. I guess.
Apparently something happened.
Yeah, you just move on. I try to like not spend too much time thinking about the past and more like go to the next race, and like. So I can't remember what happened. No idea.
Fair enough. Bathurst. Personally, I love Bathurst. Everyone I've spoken to on here loves Bathurst. There's not much I can say. I mean, that lap that you did in '98 down at Bathurst, it was like a second and a half faster than anyone else around that circuit. How? How did you do it?
It's a good commentary from Murray Walker as well, talking about us having a pizza the day before. I remember,
yes.
And hearing it afterwards. But no, I remember Bathurst is definitely number 1 on my list. Talking about tracks, for sure, no question. And first time coming there, going around the circuit, when you're up here up at the top before going down to the chicane, it's like you look outside and you don't know where to brake. You need to find a braking mark, and it's just like amazing circuit. It's like really nice to drive, and I enjoyed it from the first time there. And Jim Richards was really good to race with. He had quite a bit of experience there.
Absolute legend. Legend down there.
What we were going to do with the tires, how we were going to plan it, and a little bit about the setup of the car and things. So I learned from the best. I mean, he'd been there so many times. It was a team effort to get the car where it was and the balance, and I agree that qualifying lap was probably my best ever qualifying lap, and so nice to have done it, and also nice that we could bring home the win as well, although very close with Nissan that time.
Yes, yeah. I remember that to me was one of the great Bathurst races. Again, not just saying it because you're on here, but it was. I watched the Bathurst. It's the only race we had on TV here from Australia, and it was just fantastic. And you said like that winning the British Touring Car Championship was the biggest win, but am I right in assuming that winning Bathurst is pretty high up there as well?
Yeah, of course, but and some other races, of course, but no, yeah, definitely, really great. It was fun, and I still have the car that we won. That I won the British Touring Cars with, and the Bathurst race. It's in my garage, so
wow,
it's nice to have kept it.
Wow, that is one cool garage. So we spoke with John Clender earlier on this year, and spoke to Matt Neal and Rob Gravitt as well, and they've all obviously raced at Bathurst, and they said it's absolutely fantastic. But John Clender still got his championship winning car from '95.
Oh yeah.
So I just love the fact that you guys have still got the cars. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
No, brilliant. Yeah. So then, yeah. Um, 1998, brilliant, fantastic. Quickly back to BTCC. 1999 was it Volvo withdrew?
No,
At the end
they
of
were. Yeah,
99,
we
and you
did.
spent a year with Ford.
Yeah, we
Was that a
we did
different?
the season. We did the 1999 season,
Yes.
so they withdrew after the season, but and the car was actually better in '99, and the engine was better, so it was more competitive. And I think we could have had a really good shot at the title even in '99. But then we did have too many mechanical failures. I think I had 2 or 3 mechanical failures whilst in the lead, but we were competitive. It was really good. But then throughout the year, we knew, or we sort of realized that Volvo was going to pull out later towards the year, and I guess we lost a bit of momentum there. But then I had a contract with Volvo, and also at that time Ford owned Volvo, so they put me in the Ford. So joining Alan Menu and Anton Reed in Ford, which I liked. It was good fun. Completely different car to drive. No power steering, although it's front wheel drive. It was quite difficult in the beginning to learn. But ProDrive liked to make it tough for the drivers, saying that in a nice way, because I really, really liked ProDrive and working with George Howard Chappell and the others, of course. My engineer Graham Taylor and everyone, a lot of people. But it was I had really good qualifying record that year, but didn't finish as good as Alan Menu, and in the end it was decided in the last race at Silverstone. And I remember having a water leak, and they pulled the car off the grid, so I could never try to win it. But must say that Alan Menu did a really good job. He did a better job in the races than I did, and brought home the points, and really deserved to win that year. So all good race driver, Alan.
Yeah, absolutely, and apparently now lives up in Scotland, not far from Knockhill. He's obviously got sick of the sunshine.
Yeah, probably.
Just one last thing on the British touring cars, because I want to move on. I don't want to keep you for too long this evening. Andy Hopley, hi Andy, how you doing? Just one thing, he said, what was it like in 1999 in the dark at Snetterton? Said it's got to be one of those crazy ideas the BTCC came up with to spice up the championship. That was mad.
Yeah, it was actually. I mean, looking forward, it wasn't a problem because of the lights. You could really see the corner, but it was really because it was like the first time for most of us doing that. Although I had done Le Mans once before. With the lights, with the cars coming from behind, it was really difficult to judge where it was. If it was 50 meters behind or 10 meters behind, was quite difficult to see because you just saw the lights in your mirror. And that was the most difficult thing, I think, to judge when to close, not to close, when the car was there or not there. So yes, just difficult for the drivers. But then when you got used to it, when the more laps you did and the more time you spent in the dark, it was less of a problem. So I think it was just great fun to try something new, and so it's been good that way. I think British Touring Cars has always been a championship, trying new things and looking forward. And I guess Alan Gow is the guy who's been pushing the boundaries, really.
Yeah, he's done an amazing job, because obviously after the Super Touring era, the series wasn't in great shape, and he's done superbly well to bring it back up to where it is now. And there's a lot of fans that would love to see some night races. That might be interesting. We'll have to see.
Yeah, why not?
See what happens. Just moving on, talking about driving at night. You mentioned about driving at the 24 hours of that race in France. The 24 hours of Le Mans. Excuse me. You've raced there, was it 4 times, I think? And you had you had the class victory in Aston Martin with in 2007 with David Brabham, who again he crops up in all of these talks. David does. He always he always comes along. That must have been a great experience to have a win. Whether it's a class win or an overall win.
Definitely.
At that most famous of races.
Of course, definitely. I mean, it was 1990 in the Group C Porsche was big experience because I was quite young, only 22 years of age. But it was the first year with the chicanes, so it was okay speed-wise on the Mistral straight. But then 2002 and 4, I did it with the Ferrari 550 Maranello. Really nice car to drive, like 600 horsepower or whatever. And the second time there, 2004, was with Colin McRae and Darren Turner. And of course, Colin was a really, really nice guy, really, to be with that week. I didn't know him before, never really met him afterwards. But really had a good week, and I kept in touch with him a little bit after because I was really impressed by him flying the helicopter to the race that year.
Yeah,
and I remember flying with him from the hotel into the circuit, and he asked
wow.
the tower if we could do a lap of the track with his helicopter. So we flew a whole lap of the circuit in his helicopter before landing at the airfield next to the track. And
wow,
that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. But then, of course, 2007 with David Brabham and Darren Turner, it was amazing because the cars then, I mean, comparing to my first years at Le Mans, you had to take care of the gearbox and everything. But in 2007 with Aston Martin, it was like a qualifying the first 17 hours because we were neck and neck with the sister car. And I remember standing in the garage like after 17 hours about to go into the car as John Herbert in the sister car went off a little bit, had a problem with the floor. They had to repair it, so they lost half a lap or whatever. I can't remember exactly, but I remember that they told me that I could be a little bit more careful under braking and try to be a little bit safer because we had like half a lap on the Corvette. So after 17 hours of qualifying, we could finally just be a little bit cautious, take it a little bit easier. So that was quite a nice feeling. And then really fun, enjoy that week with the team, with the other drivers, and had a really good time doing it together with ProDrive again. And I think standing by the side of the track, watching David Brabham taking it home in the wet, I was quite happy to stand by the side actually. So he did a really good job to keep the car on the track because it was raining quite heavy at the end.
It was really raining at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, but winning it, of course, in the GT1 category with ProDrive, that was also one of my most memorable wins, definitely.
Yeah, no, fantastic. It's been, again, spoken to quite a few people that have done the Le Mans 24 hours, and the only two that have said they didn't like it were Steve Soper and Andy Priaulx. And then I thought Steve Soper surprised me. I thought he'd love that kind of thing, but yeah, everyone seems to love it. And you know, it's just one of those iconic races, isn't it? It's just a fantastic event.
Yeah, definitely.
And it needs more TV coverage in the UK if anyone's watching, because we don't have enough.
In Sweden, they broadcast most of the race. I think all of it. Yeah. So you live in the wrong country.
Yeah, have to try and find a Swedish stream, a legal one, of course.
Yeah.
And obviously, we mentioned about Colin McRae. Obviously, very, very sad. What happened with him? Just an absolute genius of the rally world, and
definitely.
Hugely missed. Yeah, very, very sad. And obviously with those who are in the helicopter as well, obviously. Very, very sad day. Remember it well. Hopefully not going to be repeated anytime soon with anyone. Again, just want to move on to the World Touring Car, the WTCC, and then now WTCR. Because you had a number of years there, but how did that move come about? Was that with Volvo again? Was it just?
Yeah, I was. We were there with the Volvo 2002 and 3. Again, the chassis quite good handling, but power-wise we weren't there, and also a bit too draggy. I remember we were like at Spa. I think we were like 25 kilometers down at the end of the straight, the Kemmel straight. So it was too draggy, but I think it could have been quite good. Maybe the car was a little bit too big for the regulations or whatever. But then Volvo pulled out. There was a private team in the last year who didn't do very well that year. But I did sign with Seat at the end of 2003. So from 2004, I raced for them. And I got the first win for Seat in the European Touring Car Championship, as it was then.
Yeah.
I think, and then in 2005, the first win at at Silverstone in the must have been the WTCC then, 2005.
Yeah. First season of the world one. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were doing quite well, and then that the Toledo wasn't that great to drive. Then it was the Seat Leon 2005 and 6, which I really liked. Petrol engine and the weight distribution quite good, and we had quite a good season. We weren't as competitive as the BMW, but I think I was the fastest Seat in the team then, with Gabriele as a teammate as well, and enjoyed those years. Then I didn't have a drive for 2007. They brought in a Mexican driver, I think it was. And I did. That's when I signed with Aston Martin to do the Le Mans, and I did a lot of testing in the winter, development with that car. We did all sorts of tests actually, and like a 30-hour test at Paul Rickard and things. So it was a lot of work with them, which I enjoyed. I did Anderstorp with Chevrolet, one race.
Yeah.
Also nice to have won that race, and it was a bit of discussion afterwards with Nicola Larini not being very happy that I came in for a race and won, but I didn't say much about it afterwards. There was quite a lot of talk among them, but I did have it in my contract. When I signed the contract, I said that if I have a chance to win, I want to be able to win. But if it's not for a win, I will yield, and that's the wording in the like.
Oh, okay. So if you were say running third and he was fourth,
if it was for a third place or for whatever, I would have to give the place up, but not if I had a chance to win. So I did everything according to the contract, and then I wasn't sure if I was going to race, but then a couple of months later or so, Seat contacted me and asked if I wanted to race for 2008. So I did another 2 seasons with Seat. But then we had changed to the diesel, so they were running a much more front-heavy diesel car in the championship, and I never really came to grips with a more heavy front. It was a different driving style a little bit, and I enjoyed 2005-6 more than 8 and 9, but still fun to race with a good team, nice atmosphere between the drivers, very competitive sometimes, but. And anyway, I enjoyed those years with Seat.
Yeah, nice stuff. Just a quick about you mentioned about different driving styles, and we sort of touched on it when you were learning the elbows out kind of racing of touring cars. Obviously, that's quite a big difference. And one that sprung to mind was like Mark Blundell, again, someone who's come on and had a chat with us, and he said that was one of the biggest things he struggled with. And he had his year in the British touring car recently. Obviously, he'd been out of the seat full time for a number of years, but he said that's what he couldn't. He said it was the front wheel drive and the elbows outness of the touring cars, more so the front wheel drive. He said because he's got no problem having like leaning on someone, but there's obviously a huge difference between rear wheel drive, front wheel drive, single seat racing that's precision, and touring cars where you can bump into someone and not worry about it.
Yeah, I mean it's also not just front and rear wheel drive. It is definitely, of course, it's different. But just looking at Daniel Ricciardo this season, a driver that everyone rates really highly, he's struggling to take the speed from entry to mid of the corner compared to how Lando Norris does it.
Yeah.
And sometimes a driver, maybe if you work with a team or with a car and develop it, and you're there for a long time, and they do something, and the driver goes quicker, they think this is the way to go, and that's often what happens. And that's why it's good to be involved in the development of a car and be there doing the tests and do as much as you can, because then you're even though they might not think it, the engineers, they see that the car goes quicker when you go one direction. And if it's a driver that really likes a very pointy front, then it's going to be developed that way. If a driver likes to lean on the rear, like to push more like that on the entry, then car will be developed that way. So It's I think a little bit different driving styles. It's quite important to take note from the team as well. I mean, you of course they quite often say there's one way to drive this car quick, but it's not the truth. It's sometimes you need to adapt a little bit to the driver, and I hope that they find a way with Ricciardo, because obviously he's not found the touch with that car yet.
Yeah, well, and I think because Lando's doing so well with it, I think a lot of people seem to be forgetting what a good driver Danny Ricciardo is. I mean, he's when he was a Red Bull, he was superb.
Yeah.
But I think even McLaren have said that it's quite a difficult, that it's a different car to drive than any of the others on the grid, and people seem to sort of just like gloss over that, which seems very unfair. But yeah, as you say, hopefully Daniel can find the sweet spot with it, because that could be a heck of a battle, those two. Again, just very quickly, I want to go back to the World Touring cars very quickly. Again, I've got a big list of people who you competed against. I think this was in 2006. I think it was. And you'll probably have an answer to this, but this looks like one of the toughest grids you've probably ever raced against. You had Augusto Farfus on it, James Thompson, Ivan Muller, Rob Huff, Nicola Larini, Alan Menu, Gianni Morbidelli, Fabrizio Giovanardi, Vincent Rademacher, Tom Coronel, Emanuele Naspetti, Andy Prio, Alex Zanardi, Jan Magnussen, Gabriele Tarquini. I mean, again, that is a stellar grid. I mean, if you're talking touring cars, grids don't come much better than that, I don't think.
Yeah, it's good, definitely.
It must have been pretty fun, racing against those guys.
Yeah, I had some really, and being a teammate to Gabriele Tarquini was fun. We spent quite a lot of time together. I enjoyed racing with him, and sometimes we could be quite upset with each other after a race. Not often, but a few times. And but he's a character, and I mean, racing for as long as he's done is quite impressive. After finishing from 1990 signing the contract with Toyota till 2009, so it was 20 years with the manufacturer, 20 consecutive years with the manufacturer. 2009 was my last year with Seat. Then 2010 I did some TV commentating for Sweden, no racing at all. Then I got the offer to do Swedish touring cars with Chevrolet, a private team in Sweden. And I enjoyed that, 11 and 12, 2 years in Sweden. So that was really my last 2 seasons. Yeah. And winning the first year, the second year. But it was fun, because I had never really raced touring cars in Sweden except for like one or two odd races before then. So 2 seasons in Sweden. And I see 2012 as my last year of racing. I did 1 or 2 races after that, a few races, but never really that well prepared or anything. So I quit after 2012, you could say.
Yeah, I mean, was it just time? Did you just think, yeah, this is the time to just draw a line under it, and were you happy to step away and you don't miss it?
No, I was quite happy to step away actually too. I had a chance to continue racing, but then I thought, once you've done it with the good teams and the manufacturer and with all the backup you have and everything, it's not the same thing doing it on a lower level, if you say. Yeah. And so I was quite happy to do that. And then now I really enjoy I think my first year of commentating was 2016. Actually, the same race that Verstappen did his debut with the Red Bull team at Barcelona. Yeah. So and then since then I've been doing that and really enjoy it. To give your opinion as a driver. Of course, not the lead commentating, but more the expert commentating. Yes. And so that's been really fun to do that. And also now working with Dino Beganovic in the Formula Regional Championship, trying to help him along. So I think everything in life has its time, if you like, and done that, finished with that, and I don't really feel the urge to go back into racing again. But then, of course, you have track days sometimes each year, so I get to drive some nice cars at the circuit, and I really enjoy that. Of course, you never get tired of it, and so it's nice to do that sometimes. but enjoying what I'm doing now.
Yeah, it is, and I guess it's nice to be still involved in maybe a less stressful capacity in racing, and obviously getting to have a drive as well, which is great. Just very quick, I read something about the Rydell Special Award. Is that am I right in saying that's an award for some for like youngsters? Is it coming
Yeah,
through?
yeah. First time was 99, I think. So I've done it 22 times. So every year we give out a bit of money and help to a young driver, and it's supposed to go. It should go to a young driver from Sweden trying to make it abroad, trying to go from Sweden to abroad, and so it's very often the one of the most talented single-seater drivers, because that was always my aim to, as a single-seater driver, to try and reach F1. So I do it together with a new Swedish paper called Bilsport. This magazine in Sweden. So they've been sponsoring this prize since '99. So I'm happy to have that kind of help with me delivering the prize.
Yeah. That's excellent. Yeah, we like that. Yeah, because obviously, young racers need all the assistance they can get. Because this thing called motorsport's not cheap, is it? It's if you can have some helping hand on the way, then that's always very welcome. Just one more thing that has just popped up. David Button. Good evening, David. And thank you, David, for putting us in touch with Terry Fullerton, who we had a chat with last week. Much appreciated. I didn't say that last week. He said, did you ever discuss with Alan Menu about Peter Rogers?
Did I? What about Peter Rogers? I don't know.
Not sure. That was the question. I don't know if there's any more on that, David, if you can help us. Because I must admit, I've drawn a blank, and I was
Alan
trying to find something else.
No, I can't remember actually. But Alan is one of the drivers I kept in touch with after racing quite a long time, and now it's a long time since I spoke to him. But we do keep in touch, text sometimes and things. And I really liked him as a driver, as a competitive. He probably one of the most competitive drivers I've been up against, especially in touring cars. But I can't remember talking about Peter Rogers. No.
Okay, no problem. Apologies, David. No problem. I must admit, I wasn't aware either. So no problem. So you flummoxed me, David. Thank you. Just a few little fun questions. I mean, again, we've got some more questions coming in, guys, but we don't want to keep Rickard too long, so apologies for that. But that is a good one. Quick one, yes or no? Have you ever fancied driving historics such as Goodwood?
Yeah, I mean, I was at Silverstone with a '98 S40 a couple of years back. I enjoyed that definitely, and I had the chance to go to Goodwood, but it didn't work out. But I would like to go there sometime. Definitely, it would be nice. I did. Was it in Copenhagen Grand Prix street circuit with the old Focus? No, Cortina. Those cars from the '60s or whatever.
Yeah, the old Cortina. Yeah,
it's really fun. I really enjoy that. So. Yeah, why not? If I do it, it's just like a one-off race for fun, definitely.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, great. We always try and end up with a few little quick-fire questions. Firstly, do you still follow the BTCC, and if so, do you still enjoy it?
I don't. I don't know where we can see it on Swedish television. Or
yeah, that's the thing. I don't think there's many.
I don't, but I read about it sometimes, and I understand it's still. I mean, over the years, it's impressive how long it's been that good a championship. So I'm happy that they still do a good job.
Yeah. And it is going from strength to strength. And we've got Donington this weekend, and and me and a few guys, we're going to be there, so that's going to be always good. Fantastic. No, good stuff. Toughest driver you ever competed against, and I saw a question, your favourite teammate when you were driving the Volvo. Oh, that's a controversial one.
Toughest driver. Since I did touring cars that many years, I think it's Alan Menu.
Yeah.
Of course, I raced with Tom Christensen in Japan. We had some tough races as well in F3, and I can't remember other drivers, of course. What was it else?
Who was your favourite teammate at Volvo in the touring cars?
I think I must say
I think someone's wanting you to say Tim Harvey here. I'm not sure.
I must say Tim Harvey. We had lots of fun. We played a lot of golf, although he was cheating sometimes. But yeah.
Scandalous.
But no, it was a lot of fun with Tim. Of course, also competitive, and I mean, competitors on the track. But he was fun to race with, and we text sometimes as well. So like to meet up with him sometimes in the future again.
Yeah, excellent. That'd be lovely. Very last question: what was the favourite car you ever drove in your career? And again, I appreciate there's a lot of them.
It's difficult to mention one car, but as a driver, you just want more power. Want to go faster, more power. And I guess first time I drove Formula 3000 in Japan, because it was a tire war between Dunlop, Yokohama, and Bridgestone. And I remember I think my qualifying time in '92. I did 3 races only in '92. In F3000 in Japan, and I think qualifying wise we qualified in front of the back of the Formula 1 grid with a couple of hundred horsepower less, because in Formula 1 it was one make tires, Goodyears, and there was so much grip. Qualifying tires, you could do 1 lap, and after 1 lap, if you tried the second lap, there was bits flying off the tires. I think that was the most impressive driving wise, but then of course also I think the Ferrari 550 Maranello impressed me a lot the first time I sat in that, and also having the chance to be part of the development in 2001 when we developed the car for FIA GT, and we did half the season and won a few races with it in the first season. So as a GT car, Ferrari 550 Maranello, single-seater F3000 in Japan when it was 3 tires. Yeah. And touring cars, it will have to be the Volvo in '98. Although when sitting in it a couple of years back, it didn't feel as good. No. And the best handling wise was the Chevrolet in 2011 in Sweden, which was in the WTCC in 2010, I guess. Yeah. So that handling wise, that was a much better car, of course.
Excellent, some great cars there. Right, we're gonna wind it down there. I mean, we've taken like an hour and a half of your time, so thank you very, very much for sticking with us. It's been great, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in, and for all the questions. It's been
for the ones that have stayed on so long.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for staying on. It's also absolutely fascinating talking to you. Just want to wind down with a couple of little things. You've been voted the 18th greatest touring car driver of all time by the readers of Motorsport magazine, which is pretty cool because there's been hundreds of touring car drivers. And I didn't realise until recently, you've been voted 37th in the top drivers who have never raced in F1. So there's a lot of drivers who have not raced in F1, and so to be in that is very, very impressive. So you're obviously held in very high regard by everyone.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm just happy to be mentioned there, to be on that list, of course. Nice to look back at sometimes in life, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. One of those things you think, oh, that was pretty good. But look, brilliant. Thank you very, very much, Rickard. It's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. Thank you very much again for your time.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Good night, everyone. Thanks very much for tuning in.